Hello everyone, I'm back again with one of these tier analysis teams, this time for Chaos Ranged. Last time we did Order Range, if you remember. Order was characterized in range by very high power units, uh, two key god creatures or heroes that really impact the game a lot, and a very large bank of top units that can really make a difference, and that some of them can even be called top tier or God tier in certain situations. If you remember and are familiar with the tier system that we're using, God tier means it's something that impacts the game so much, it warps the game around it, it really wins games almost by itself, single-handedly, and really makes opponents play differently because of the appearance or the existence of those heroes. Top tiers are your top line, best solid heroes for specific functions that really can be the backbone of our team. Good heroes are heroes you shouldn't be embarrassed playing them, and that can have a very good impact on the game and can be very good specifically in some occasions. Meh heroes are heroes that are not really that great. They're still playable but not really impressive. Trash can, of course, means those are heroes that are not really useful or barely unplayable. And there's a special combo tier for heroes that are specifically shiny or important when used as a combination or something. That could, for example, in certain combinations be even considered top or god tier, but for the most part they are not. But the fact that this combination exists makes them somehow exceptional. Um, Also, as a small addition, I'm always using this tier level comparison for high power teams, meaning maximum 4th, 5th reborn level heroes. Obviously, there are some changes when you scale down to lower power levels, and I will try to comment on those as well as they show up. But for the most part, these assessments that we have here are very similar at all tiers. There's again exceptions. I will talk about them in a minute. So if we start right away, first hero that I want to talk about is Discordia over here. Discordia is a hero probably many people are familiar with, or at least they're familiar with their smaller versions like Void Juggler. The main thing about Discordia and the reason why this hero is really strong at high power is because she has a very high attack, she has very decent defense as well, so she can survive most of the attacks at least once and stick around, and she gives you immediate value. So if, for example, if you play her on turn 3 and you have 1 or 2 heroes lying around, she basically doubles up your attack for that turn. And at high power levels, that can mean an extra 1,000 to even more damage, and that can just win you the game at that point straight up. So every time she shows up, even if you play second turn with just one hero laying around or just as a value play, she's going to be still very good. The difference, well, this hero is particularly interesting for weaker teams or for low power teams because her main ability of doubling up your attacks doesn't change from level 1 to the highest level. So you will get that value anyway, no matter when you play it. That's very similar to the way Justia works, who also gives you the ability to miss people independently of which level you have. So that makes her already very good at almost any level. But the fact that her other abilities scale as well, and that provide you additional value, makes her really good, especially within a chaos team. An argument could be made that she's only top tier, and I couldn't think it could go either way. I guess here my preference for chaos teams and chaos units maybe shines a little bit through. I believe she's really within the god tier because she really impacts the game so much. And that's what she's a really strong unit, and you should consider playing her every time you can, even in combination with the Void Juggler or other lesser versions, just to double up and triple up on different attack of units. If we go one tier below to the top tier, you can see there's an array of 5 different units, 3 of them being very aggressive, as is typical for Chaos, and 2 of them being very defensive. which is also very interesting as well. The first one is Urik, who is a skeleton that used to be laughed at for using it, and after the last revamp, it became a really, really strong unit. Now, his attack value and health are not really that great, but the fact that every time he shows up, he immediately gives you value, shooting the whole line and destroying things. The fact that it can pump itself really, really high, really, really quickly through its third ability, and the fact that it has reborn, so it will show up again and bring you that value twice and pump itself twice, makes him a formidable unit, and some people even consider him to be god tier, which I think the argument can be made. Some teams will struggle a lot against this particular unit, especially if they don't have any silencing unit or a good blocker like Shamuna or similar. So Urik, really, really top level, very fine unit. Uh, if you combine him with Drogon, the pet, it can be really devastating because Drogon will just basically for each element of the board that he destroys on arrival will shoot straight to the warlord and will also pump him proportionally to its power. So it will get him really, really quickly. And I believe if you have him maxed out with a Drogon, he can shoot for up to 1,000 damage for turn one if you have it so configured in that way. So it can be really, really impressive. The next unit is a unit we had an event for very recently, which is TNT. And this is a unit basically for control of the board and aggressive splash damage. Obviously, he's not as strong as Trick in terms of splash because his powers are limited, so he always have the same type of splash. But that splash can be relevant, especially to deal with smaller rods or small units lying around blocking line of sight, or maybe objects that are blocking the field. What is most interesting and intriguing about this unit is the fact that it grows, that it explodes when it gets destroyed, making splash damage for everyone on the other side of the board, and also the fact that it can create these instant kill runes that really can clock the whole field and leave the opponent with very few ways to play any creature and not just lose a turn playing something and being destroyed immediately. Now, it must be said that his ability to create these runes is particularly powerful at maximum level, meaning level 26. So every time you get in any reborn at level 26, he will produce 3 runes, and that's basically what puts him over the edge and makes him really, really top. Because 3 runes means if you manage to stick around for 2 turns, you can remove half of the field from your opponent, basically. If you manage to get him even for 4 turns, you can potentially block the whole board. Almost the whole board, basically. So really, really strong unit, very useful, lots of splash damage, still a little bit on the lower defense side and lower power, so you have to protect him and be mindful of that. But very, very good unit and the backbone of a good team. The next unit is Red Woman, who is essentially Chaos's answer to Afro. She is very similar in a way that she can shoot straight to the Warlord, and she has a very high power and defense for her unit. Obviously not as high in terms of attack as Afro, but her defense is very similar in size when maxed out. Now she's really interesting because there are bonuses you can use in your team to make all your creatures or your heroes in Chaos have vampirism. And when she triggers at maximum power, she gets between 86 and 100 damage straight to the warlord per attack per vampirism triggered. So, and she also provides vampirism to everyone. So it's really interesting because she can both bump everyone, ensuring that they come through and that they make more damage, but also she shoots straight up to the opponent. At the last ability that she has, she's able to to bump your whole team provided they have vampirism. So that can be also pretty devastating, and she's particularly good when you play her upstream. So everybody in that turn that shows up later is able to benefit from the vampirism and trigger her multiple times. She might be even, I mean, I haven't played it with a max out unit yet. I'm still working on getting her power up, but she might be even, you can make the case to consider her god tier, depending on if you build a team around her to really maximize the direct damage to the warlord. The next unit is one that we're having an event for her right now. Lotrix, Madame Lotrix, who sneakily has way more abilities than what you can read on the card straight up. The reason for this is she summons different puppets, and these puppets have many abilities as well, and all these abilities also add to her full suite of abilities as well. So her main function is going to be to show up with a very high defense, which is good for a shooter, so she can stick around and keep attacking. And she will create these little puppets that will reflect damage done on her. So those puppets will clog up the whole melee slots that you have, making sure no one shows up through melee attacks. And then when these puppets die, she will cleanse as the one cleansing unit from chaos, and she will also destroy one puppet every turn to bump herself both in attack and defense, making her growing over time. So this is a typical unit that would just sit there, start attacking, block everyone, block everything, annoy the opponent a lot, make many plays that they may make useless, and then keep growing and making higher and higher attacks. So it becomes unstoppable. So it's kind of a snowballing effect. So very annoying hero, very difficult to deal with, and sometimes if you don't manage to control her quickly, you just straight up lose the game to her. I don't believe she can be considered god tier because she needs all this time and setup, and the puppets need to spawn properly in the right place. The AI obviously spawns them wherever the AI wants them, but you can't reliably block all the lines that you need. So with a bit of setup, she can be very, very strong, but she's not really god tier yet. The next hero is going to be Hanako, and that's the final hero in this top tier. And she's also a bit of an unusual hero for chaos. She's kind of like a one-man arm or one-woman army. She flies, which already makes her difficult to deal with as a melee unit. She shoots, so that puts her in a similar space as the turtle, the epic turtle. But she also has multiple abilities that are very annoying. She also spawns small horo units that also fly, also block the whole main melee slot, and also freeze opponent melee creatures and even range attackers. So she can really block a lot of different lines at the same time, and her power grows with the different freezing units. So in a dedicated freezing team, or even just by herself, she can grow her comparatively low attack very, very quickly and become really annoying, like this background hero that just sits there, attacks, blocks all the different lines of attack, and keeps shooting you for increasingly amounts of damage. So I believe this unit is pretty good so far. I haven't seen any big one of these, but she can be really powerful. However, she's not the usual playstyle that I like to play, so I'm not especially fond of her, but I know that she's very annoying to deal with, and that's why she should be considered one of the top tier. If we move down to the good tier, many of these units are also very, very good as well, and could in some situations be considered top tier. Now, the first hero here is Grandma, the Reaper, who is similar to Hanako in a sense that she also flies and spawns, but it's a completely different type of hero. First of all, her defense is really, really low, comparatively speaking, so that doesn't work very well, and her spawning is based on destroying things, and all the spawns in the back similar, smaller, lesser copies of herself that have also some special splash abilities and so on that can be very useful, but it's not really as blocking and devastating as Hanako. Also, Hanako, remember, has over 600 defense at maximum power, compared to the 200 something ish that the Grandma has, which makes her easy to kill, probably as a measure that she doesn't spin out of control. However, Grandma also has the ability to pump every chaos creature every turn, so if left unchecked in a dedicated chaos or primarily chaos team, she can be really good and very interesting. But I think the low defense makes her a difficult unit to argue for a top spot. Still, again, not embarrassing or anything, and can be really interesting. Next up is Neelan, who is also one of the units that we are having the current event for. Neelan is kind of a pet unit of mine. I've liked him very, very much for a long time, and he has multiple abilities that are very interesting and cool. First, he is one of the poison machines in this game, poisoning every hero from the opponents as it shows up, and even poisoning them for a very high level. The fifth reborn maxed out unit poisons for over 150 poison on arrival, which is very significant. Secondly, he can spawn really, really quickly, so every unit you manage to destroy by whatever reason spawns small little mummies who also poison as well. And he also has this freeze ability on arrival, which gives you straight up value and can block basically the whole line of melee units the opponent has. And that can buy you valuable time to set up something or to create a defense good enough to recover from a losing momentum that you have. His defense is also very small, comparatively speaking. So if you don't manage to protect him either through spawning or through other measures, he might be played and then left over later on. This unit is also very strong at lower power levels because all the spawning, despite cloning your main range unit slots, it can be really hard to deal with for regular teams at lower power levels. So very good unit, interesting, not really top, but still very serviceable and not embarrassing to play. And again, for me, I have fond memories of playing him, so I'm a big fan. Next one is Agony, who is also a very strange, unconventional hero for Chaos. She basically can deal with almost any type of unit as long as she has, or those units have some kind of damage on them. But the effect goes on both sides, so you can basically turn the whole board into crystals when she on arrival. So this gives you straight up value, which is interesting because you can play her and you immediately get something. And she can even replace silencing effects dealing directly with the creatures as you play her. Also, these crystals at the highest power levels are really big in size and difficult to get through, and it can clog the board of the opponent very much, so they can no longer play anything in any, or they're very limited in the scope of the types of things they can play. And if left unchecked, the crystals will also shoot to you, and you can even set up these crystals in a way that you destroy them later on, and you basically enable that to go straight damage to the opponent warlord. Agony can be really interesting because those crystallization abilities work the same at any power level, so even a level 1 unit will still give you that crystal value. And those crystals get really massive when you play a high powered version, going up to 400 in size, which is really not something to joke about. So all in all, it's a good unit. It has a good effect, even though the effect can need some setup because it can wreck your board as well. And her stats are what make her just merely good. Not embarrassing, of course, but not good enough to be played as a top tier hero, but still can be a very useful unit. Next up, on the final unit in this good category, is going to be Regardless. Regardless is basically a Hellgate attached to a shooter. In a way, very similar to Alex in Oda, However, one tier below in category because of his stats are just significantly weaker. So he has a lot less defense, I think under 300, which makes him rather small and easy to deal with. And his attack value is not as high as Alex, which has, as I mentioned yesterday, the highest attack value for a range unit in the game. The Hellgate can be really massive though. It can go up to I think over 600 hit points, which is very significant. But a Hellgate is not really that impressive at high power levels. So if you're looking for silencing capabilities, if you like that, or you're that kind of player, something I'm not really am myself, he can be useful in that way. And he also brings an object that sticks around and can be valuable in some capacity. So again, not embarrassing, but probably pretty good. Finally, we go to the meh category where we find two different units, one Necro and Medusa. And Necro is interesting because Necro at low power levels becomes a really formidable hero. Almost impossible to deal with when you're playing with a weaker, under first reborn low level team, because these small rods really clog up the whole space and don't let the opponent get through to you, to your warlord. Also, the fact that when these spawns get destroyed, they shoot randomly at your different units can be really devastating at low power levels. At the high power levels, however, the scaling of the spawns is not really impressive. The fact that the spawns don't attack in any form because they die immediately doesn't really help much. And also the ability of shooting different heroes is just too low impact to be that useful. So you're not really able to clock the board in the same way because it's a lot easier for the opponent to deal with, and in some cases it's really a big liability. For example, if somebody plays a streak against a Necro, it can be a massive boost of attack by dealing with all the units at once with one single shot. The fact that the Necro gets pumped when the rods are destroyed, that's nice. That can give it some staying power. However, his values all in all as a shooter are not really impressive, and it's a unit that you can again enjoy a lot, and it's definitely top tier if you're playing a low power team, but you should probably stay away from it when you're playing at high power levels. Medusa finally is a unit that has a very high attack for a range unit in Chaos, but her abilities are mostly low impact. The freezing ability is basically the star of the bunch, but the other two are conditional and not even that exciting. So it randomly hits male units, and she also creates some freezing runes when she gets dispatched. So to sum up, she has, I think, the third strongest printed attack of any range units. That's a good thing. But her three skills are fairly low impact, especially the one against male heroes and the three runes on death. So that's what makes this unit not really as good. I mean, it's not completely embarrassing. She does manage to get some good damage across if she gets to shoot. And the freezing on arrival in line can be very annoying. But it's not really a unit that is going to help you get over the edge or really compete very well at a high power level. At a low power level, however, this can be a lot more interesting. The freezing on side, I think, has a lot more impact at low power levels, and the freezing units and the freezing runes and the male stealing of male units can be more interesting, and you can see that when you play her, for example, in the Divine Arena. She's usually one of the key units that helps you get over the edge compared to the others. Also, I think at very low power levels, she still has comparatively high attack and decent defense, so she can be good in those scenarios, similar to Necro as well. But at high power level, I don't believe she makes the cut of any of the top teams because there's just better options available, especially in Order, but even not leaving Chaos. So all in all, Chaos, as you can see, some very good units at the top, some very interesting units with higher attack values, also a few surprisingly defensive units that can really clog the game, and all in all, very decent array of options if you're building a Chaos team. Again, for me, as somebody who likes playing Chaos a lot, as you can see on my streams, um, I had to struggle to make this list, not to put my bias on top and make everybody a very, very strong unit. I think I'm very confident with the way this list is configured right now. I think it's objectively more or less correct. There might be some changes in the future. Medusa is probably going to get reworked, so that if she gets a rework similar to Urik, that may bump her a few tiers up. Hanako hasn't been around for a while, so she may also be altered a little bit. But all in all, I think for the most part we have captured the main units. So feel free to comment and discuss in the comment section of the video. I hope you like the video so far, and I hope you're enjoying this tier analysis. Next video is probably going to be closing up the chapter on range. Range units are by far the least units, so those videos should be under half an hour. The melee units, however, they are many and massive, so those videos are probably going to be a bit longer. So it'll take me a bit more time to do those and get around to them. But we will probably start in the same order, so Order first, then Chaos, and then Nature last. Nothing against Nature. Nature is great. It's just the order that came up. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you like the content, and see you on the next one. Bye bye.